Welcome back to today's episode, where we chat with founder and CEO of Fitstop. Today's episode is full of many golden nuggets as we talk about the origins of Fitstop, how Pete got into franchising, expanding the business in the early days before franchising. We also discuss how to navigate or how Fitstop navigated the COVID pandemic. We go over the current economic climate and how to navigate through it, building resilience and adaptability, what qualities it takes to be a CEO, and much, much more. So sit back and enjoy this episode as we take an in-depth look of what it takes to be a CEO of a franchise with over 150 locations. I hope you enjoy. All right, here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Peter Hull. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Zane. It's fun to be back in this office, in this room.
Yeah, the OG, well, not OG.
Second ever office that we had. It was a big foundational growth period for us up here. A lot of fond memories, a lot of learnings, but I'm pumped to be back and share a bit more about it.
Share the learnings.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I guess for anyone that doesn't know Fitstop or who you are, you've gone in depth in other podcasts like The True Origin, but maybe a brief version of, I guess, what Fitstop is, and like philosophies and values and stuff, and then how it began.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're the home of functional fitness. Now it's taken us 10 years to develop this, but the vision of the brand and the business now is to become the world's largest functional fitness community. And that's something that has really evolved over the last couple of years. We're so passionate about our community. I think it's pretty simple and easy to see a fit stopper. We're go-getters. We live life to the max. We stop at nothing, one of our core values. But we've also really evolved our mission. Where we started the brand is very different in some ways to where it is today. We want to inspire the world to move more so they can live more. And for me, what that really means, and going back to the very start, being a washed up athlete, training athletes, it was always about training them for their sport. We know a fit stopper's sport is life, right? We want them to say yes to more things. Like my ultimate goal here is that when you're scrolling on Instagram, doing the scroll of doom, getting caught up in all the things, you come across something like the Bridge to Brisbane or Turf Games or High Rocks, and instead of overthinking it and talking yourself out of it, you just say yes to it. And I think that's what Fitstop's training methodology really provides. And then something else we've developed over the last couple of years, although it's been on all of our locations in print material for the last 4 or 5, is what our values are of a brand. And that's something that I think has always been quite true to Fitstop. So our first one, stop at nothing. We want to really be relentless. We want to make sure that, we're constantly chasing that energy, what's next for us. And we're addicted to progression, I think. We talk heavily about embracing the sweat. Again, another logo and sign that's in all of our Fitstops. And that's really about becoming resilient, right? Because when we embrace the sweat, we do the work, right? And I think that's what the world needs. And again, I think that's what Fitstop does for people, especially right now. I guess what the world's going through in so many different ways, resilience is so important, right? And then being unstoppable together, our third value. It's really about being selfless. Now, a fit stopper, when they come in to train together, we want to make sure we've created a safe environment. You can be vulnerable, and we think our training methodology really brings that to life. At Fitstop, you can train at your own pace, doing your own weight. So when you come into Newstead, you need to be able to back squat and spot someone, right? Like I don't think there's not a nicer environment to show vulnerability and really be exposed when, Zane, you've got 160 on a back squat. I need to get right in there, right in behind you in your personal space and spot you in that last rep. And that human connection that can be created in 50 minutes in a workout, I think is really, really special. So yeah, I'm pumped to get to where we have today. And it's come from a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment of our community as a whole. And yes, that starts at a HQ team, but it's our business owners that really live and breathe this every single day. So yeah, from a washed up athlete to knee reconstructions to a personal trainer to trying to train athletes and build out this training methodology that we all now know and love. And what it comes down to is it's periodized training that just gets real results for real people. We've just been able to really refine the brand over the last 10 or so years. And I think we're really stepping into the next phase of Fitstop and how we can globalize our community.
Yeah, nice. Very well summarized.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah. I learned goodly. So yeah, you had your original, so you motocross athlete, competitor, and then your second year recon, and then you're like, okay, this is time, basically.
Yeah, it was the surgeon said to my mum, he should grow up and get a real job.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So I became a personal trainer, right? Like I had done an apprenticeship as a motorcycle mechanic because I was just living and breathing the motorcycle space. So I became a personal trainer so I could just work with athletes. Definitely didn't want to grow up or get a real job. And, personal training is quite hard. And I saw firstly how fun it is and how passionate you can be as a personal trainer, and you can really change lives. You can make a really big impact in people, but how do you make that a career? How do you make money out of it? How does this expose you to more things? And how do you really scale it? And I jumped into then turning that into group fitness and taking the methodology as a personal trainer and the tracking and the accountability and the nutrition, turn that into group fitness, and then scaled that. Like that, went really quickly, really hard that you've got to pay rent and you've got to pay team and you've got to write and read a P&L and create a marketing plan and a brand philosophy and all these things. But yeah, I was able to really prove that I could grow a subscription-based membership and build a team, and a very small location turned into a bigger location and a bigger brand, and then 200 members, and then the second location at Morningside. It just started to evolve and grow, and got to work with really cool brands that made us stand out. I had zero budget, but I was training Red Bull athletes, and I was partnering with Grilled Australia, and hosting parties at nightclubs and doing a lot of fun stuff. And then decided to franchise in 2017, and life changed.
Yeah, because you had 2013 was P2P, which was the original.
Yeah, so Power to Perform was my original personal training brand. And where Fitstop comes from is in motorsport, you call it a pit stop, right?
Yeah.
F1. I was going to motocross tracks and I was having a pop-up. So instead of calling it a pit stop, I called it a fit stop.
Yeah.
So that's where the name's really born from. So we cut the P2P thing out, I think, in about 2015.
Yeah.
When I moved our first location into Victoria Point, maybe it was still there then, and then franchised in 2017 and started to focus on how we could develop a system that was scalable. And that was the real test for the next couple of years.
So what made you think to franchise? Did you go to a convention? Did you have a mentor? Like, where'd you go, I have 2 gyms or 1 gym, and then you're like, let's make it a franchise?
It was when I had 2. And I think this is the interesting part about the entrepreneur's world. It's like, you think you can do things, so you just do it. And I'm really grateful that I was probably that naive back then. I did have different mentors as I kind of went through different development phases of business. I didn't have a mentor at the time that we decided to franchise, but I knew a few people that had done it. So shout out to Ben and Sam at Asai Brothers. They were local Redlands boys. I actually sat down with Sam one day and asked him how he expanded. And this was actually before we opened the second one. He was like, exactly how you opened your first one, just do that again for your second. So I was like, cool.
Genius.
He was like, okay, cool. So I think 2 weeks after that conversation, I went and signed a new lease at Morningside and then started the build process. I think, we opened that location a week before Beck and I got married. I like to bite off a bit. And it worked, right? I opened it with 0 members, threw a massive, open day party, had Red Bull there, all the things, DJ. I think we signed 30 members on day 1, and then within a couple of weeks it had 100 members. And we focused on the culture and the training, and it just started to drive growth. But franchising was my intention behind franchising was, I had a great manager in Morningside, Sam Seaton, still the owner today. He had come from Fitness First. He was a professional athlete, Ironman. And when he actually joined as the manager, he said, I want more than just the role though. I want ownership. And so I took that literal. So I probably owe Sam a lot for pushing me into the deep end. I went and explored how I could have Sam have ownership. And then the same, manager at Victoria Point, Anthony, it was the same for him. I was like, well, hey, I need to use these 2 guys here as that test case, but how can I grow with them and develop this and have them have ownership of the brand in that early phase, and worked out that franchising was the best way. It was a long grind after that to learn the real complexities of franchising, but what I knew instantly was I needed to sell the first two to fund out the core product of the franchise. And that was, how do I develop a brand and a system that's scalable? And that's what I just became obsessed about.
Yeah. And was that when you just put your Dr. Google hat on and just researched everything, or did you just copy the Sahi brothers?
No, like,
because you had, I guess, like, yeah. Because I imagine you would be super hesitant and nervous, but you did have youth on your side where, like, you're a bit naive and you're like, fuck, it's going to work. I'll make it work.
Well, I think I also had support around me, right?
Yeah.
So, I had recently been married when we did this. Beck's my biggest supporter and also my biggest critic, right? She's going to pull everything apart that I think and talk about, which is so important for me. So it's like, I'm the one that's always going to jump in the deep end without anything. But she's going to make sure there's there's a little rope there, just in case I start drowning.
Yeah.
So having that support around me, from her, from family, from others, and I think the energy and belief that the fitness space can give you, like our first real franchisee was Christy and Chris, who were members. They bought Slacks Creek, and it was because as soon as I said, I'm franchising and I'm selling Morningside, instantly they were like, we would have bought it. Right. So they're like, cool, how do we do the third one? And I said to them, I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I'll be there with you and we'll build it the same as we built Morningside.
Yeah.
And then when 3 turned into 4 and 5 and 6, what we did was every time we would open one, we would look at the system and what worked and what didn't. But probably most importantly, in those early days, it was really fun because every owner came with us. So every new open, all the owners were there. A lot of the trainers were there, and we would just be in the deep end together. So we would be helping with sales calls. We'd be setting up the event. We actually didn't do pre-sales back then. Crazy, I know.
Yeah.
But like, we opened with 0 revenue, 0 members. We opened it as an event, like kind of like a soft float open. But yeah, opened as an event. And then from day one, it was like, how do I get people in to do my class? How do I sign them up as members?
That's so ballsy.
And
a little bit dumb, but also
it was dumb.
Yeah.
But like, for me, it was build it and they will come. That was my mentality. Yeah. And like, man, Russell, my global CFO now, is like, you never do that, Pete. Like, never spend.
Finance 101.
Yeah, never spend before you have. And I was just a complete opposite, right? And now we've got incredible systems that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But what I loved about it, and again, where that unstoppable together value comes from, is plugging everyone in to that journey and leaning on everyone to go like, what do we need to do better here? And like, again, I'll fast forward, even as a brand today, I think we lost our way a little bit through the growth journey of some of that magic. And recently we've had a new COO join us. She's moved over from the US. I've taken her from a really big global brand. Shouldn't say that, should I? That's fine. But what she's really enabled us to do is to lean into where the magic's been in the past and what's worked, like not just one time, but like over time and time again. And this week, actually, we did what they call a group scoop. I wasn't involved because they didn't need the hype man. They needed detail. But we invited a bunch of business owners onto a call, and there was set topics, and they had to talk individually about what's worked in the business and what do they think we need to do more of. That's all been documented out. So again, we're leaning into that unstoppable together value, and that's going to set us up for 2025. So anyone starting early stage business and anyone in business right now, especially some of the complexities and challenges we're going through, it's lean into the people around you. For us, that's business owners, franchisees. And then secondly, it's a member, right? So who is your consumer? Who's your customer? Who's going to give you great feedback around when they loved your brand, when they loved working with you, and what you should do more of and better? Because everyone's a critic out there as well. You know, we can't always just listen to the Google review or, you know, maybe the inappropriate email that we get sent from time to time. So yeah.
Okay. That kind of touches on the next question. Cause you know, from 2017 where it was 2 to now where it's like over 150.
Yeah. 156 globally,
and
4 countries.
4 countries. Yeah. So obviously there's been a lot of right calls along the way to get to where you are. What's the secret? Is it about, like, obviously at the beginning you said you're just finding your feet and making it up as you go along, but obviously that changed at some point. Is it having the right senior staff around you, like hiring the right, you were CEO, but COO or sales or like, what have you learned there that you're like, oh, this is the key, or we should do this better, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think for me, someone very early on said, everyone in your life, and this was talking more about business, but I think it spans further than that. Everyone in your life is there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I've really tried to focus on what season are we in, and who do we need around us in that season. And I guess it's not to dilute impact we can have and the relationships we're building, because I think that's really important. But we've gone through all these different seasons. It was startup phase where you've got to be scrappy. You've got to have people that are on the bus that maybe at that stage don't have all the answers, but they just want to go with it. It's like, how quickly can people run with me? And then I think we moved into a new season, kind of coming out of COVID, where it was like, oh, I can't run I'm running in the wrong way. I'm zigzagging. Like, who do we need to bring in that has been through this next phase of growth? And that next phase for us was, how do we get to that big milestone of 100 locations? Because in franchising, you've got to build out, your business is building out the business, right? And then from that, it's driving more consumers in. We're a percentage of revenue model. So I've got to look at our business like everyone else does. Where's my revenue coming from? It's coming from the member, and it's coming from each physical location. So once we hit that 100 location mark in franchising, that's kind of the holy grail. That's like, oh, you're actually a system now because you've been able to open 100 of these things. They're still open. And you've got some refinement. Typically some are making heaps of money and some aren't making much money. It's like, how do you bridge that gap? What's your averages? How do you increase that? And so we had a really good close team through that next season of like COVID times, 40 or so, 30 or so locations to 100, that was able to drive that sense of maturity in. Then that next kind of 100, and that's that phase we're in now, and really thinking about globalization is, okay, what does it now look like? Now we've got a global COO and a global CFO that is really kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say even in my corner, they're in the business's corner now. And I think that was the difference. It was a team that was in my corner to a team now that's in the business's corner, where they're going, no, Pete, that's not right for the company. That doesn't align with our direction and vision. We can't do that in the US. No, you need to think about this. And so I think that's really, really important for us. So I guess to answer your question, it's definitely about the people, but it's about what season you're in, who you have around you, what pace you're running at, and how mature are you getting.
Yeah, it's almost like having the right HQ for the right period of time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because I can't remember what it was. There was a podcast the other day and he was talking about when you're a small to medium business, you need a certain type of person.
Yep.
Because they the man of many hats, right? Because when you're a startup, you do 50 jobs. But when you get to 100 plus locations or 200 plus locations, you need experts in each field that will push, like you said, the global CFO, and they're looking after the franchise now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it just minimizes some of those mistakes. And, mistakes in the early days, you can afford to be a bit scrappy because you're not burning a lot of cash. Like, it's a lot of energy. Whereas as soon as you start getting to that bigger business size, it's so easy to make the wrong move. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, where'd the 100 grand go? Oh no, this happened over here. Oh, I signed the wrong deal on this in the US. Like it's a bigger ship now, but you've got so much more to burn, which actually makes a huge impact on the network. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I can't spend that on marketing or do that initiative or focus on this area. So, and you need more than people now. It comes back down to now the strategy and then execution, to drive more members in at the end of the day.
Yeah. Did you have any challenges initially, like getting it off the blocks, any major roadblocks? Like, because obviously you fumbled your way through it, but was there any major hurdles, or was it all just sort of medium hurdles?
Look, I think for me that COVID was the first big one.
Yeah, that's my next question.
And that was because business wasn't easy before COVID, but it was somewhat enjoyable because it was really fluent. We were a young brand. We were just doing things like holding events, and we were also very dense in Queensland / Brisbane. So getting everyone together was easy. Like it was all about communication and buy-in. And it's the same, like the business owners that bought into the early stages, I'm so grateful for, because they bought in because of me and what the vision was and the energy and our training methodology. Beck didn't join the company. I think she joined the business around 10 or 15 locations. Left her recruitment career to step in to take over that franchise sales. Like all the ones before her, it was relationship driven. It was like, come to a workout with me. Yeah. I want to chat about the future and the vision and buy into that. And it was like, cool, rally the troops, let's go. Then when COVID hit, it was all of a sudden like, oh, this is serious. We need to make some very, very sound decisions. And I was really lucky at that stage. I we had, raised a little bit of money. We had hired a team. We'd invested in technology, so we could actually kind of rally together and go, what is the best decisions right now for the company? And I wasn't scared I've never been scared to make a decision. We, very quickly did some strategic planning, made some decisions, worked out how to communicate it, and just did whatever it took to pull it off. And I'm really glad, fortunate and grateful that we did. So yeah, my first big hurdle in business was COVID.
Yeah, we might as well touch on that now because I was going to ask about that later. But yeah, so with COVID, I was not an owner yet. I was an employee.
No. Yep.
And because I was obviously shitting my pants even as an employee, because I'm like, what does this mean? Like, how long are we in lockdown for, and all that sort of stuff. Were you a little bit panic at the disco? Like, what's going to happen to this thing I've worked so hard to build? Or were you kind of like, oh, we'll get through it, and it'll, like, where were you at?
When you saw me on Zoom calls, I was like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah. When end call, cry.
Well, look, and maybe this is not one of my strengths, but I try to stay really composed at all times. I think I learned that through motocross maybe. Like, I think it taught me to like hit the ground hard, get back up, go. Like, and I don't know if it's the right attitude, that mentality of just like never give up, just keep running. But for me, it was once we made a decision on the strategic direction, and not going to lie, we did get a little lucky because I was already building out our own tech. So that was my silver bullet. It was like, okay, we can still keep our members moving, keep them safe, but they can keep paying, right? We're a business. We need to drive revenue in. And a lot of fitness businesses went through months of no revenue. We were really fortunate. You're a team member of ours at the time. We could still pay people. Yeah. Now, we were driving revenue in. We had a team that was straight away, like, it was kind of a rally the team. All right, you're on leasing. You're getting lease abatements for everyone. And we were lucky. We had, I think, only like 20-something locations at the time. So we got to go hard and fast, right? What can we control? Work with the landlords, get rent abatements, work with all of our trainers and owners. We pushed out the communication around, how do you get any form of relief if you've got access to it? How do you keep your team employed? What sessions are we going to run? We implemented Fitstop at home. So we launched our digital app within like 2 days or something. You were down here, dressing up as Pikachu and doing online training, 6 sessions a day. Like, but then we also had Fitstops teaming up. Like David Salisbury would come in, Corey would come and train with you. Like, we were coming together as a group and a community and showing how much we genuinely cared. And that was important. But yeah, personally, like, I was going home and no idea what to do. Like, Beck will tell you so many stories of me just sitting there being like, I don't think I got this, right? Like, I remember, again, I was probably fortunate. I did a trip to the US literally the day before we went into like global lockdown. So I flew over for IFA, so an international franchise conference. It was my first international conference. I was excited to go and learn. I landed in LA. On the way over, on all the commentary was like going into this global pandemic lockdown. I landed, I spent 24 hours in LA. I went and looked at every single gym I could to see what they were doing. I got insight into how they were cleaning things, what they were going to do from like an online presence. And then I brought that back here. And so I had a little bit of insight or vision into like what we could do. But I remember, sitting at home. I lived in Newstead at the time, Skyring Terrace. Sitting at home, listening to the announcement that we're going into lockdown tomorrow, and just thinking, oh man, like it did feel like, my child had just been hit by a car. Like, and that's a pretty bad analogy, but like it was gut wrenching, right? You're like, and it wasn't for me, to be honest. It was, I've worked for all of this, but I've also got 22 owners that like are sitting there feeling the same. I can control the outcome here. What can I do? How can I help? And it was just, I think I'd sent an email out to everyone saying, don't have a plan right now, but I'm going to be online tomorrow at 8:00 and we'll do a group Zoom. That's all I could do.
Well, I think no one knew what we were doing.
No.
Like the government didn't even know what they were doing. Like, it changed every day. And
yes.
I think definitely, the silver bullet was the app, because the app, the first few days we did Facebook Lives, which was such a unique experience. I was wearing costumes like a fuckwit. That was my own mental sanity. But like when you're on Facebook Live, you can't see anyone back. So you're just talking to your phone, and you're like, members would text me like in bed watching me, like just me on the screen. And then we obviously got the app, and we, integrated that with Zoom. There's this whole thing, and like that was a wild time.
It was a wild time. But I think what was important there was that was probably the first time Fitstop was really recognized. Like, you know, there's other bigger brands, right? F45's out there. We were first to market, you know, but our message was keep people safe, keep them moving, right? Keep them connected. That's all we cared about as a group, as a community. And, you know, I think I was on 7 different news morning shows, and everyone wanted to come in here and film us in Newstead. And then even like when we were coming back out of COVID, they were coming to us as thought leaders to go, what are you guys doing? What wipes are you using? How are you running sessions? Like, Channel 7 was in here a number of times interviewing us. And that was a really pivotal moment. And it just leans into the importance of that brand message and connecting with your consumer. And again, as we've kind of grown and scaled, we've probably diluted a bit of that, but we're really leaning back into that now. So, it was an interesting time, but we opened something like 10 locations the week that we reopened after COVID, Dave at Salisbury being one of them. So it was so good to see the confidence in the brand through what was probably one of the hardest times anyone's been through in a long time, in generations. So
yeah. I think also as well, what helped was from a location perspective, the community that every location had built. Like, I'm assuming the locations were similar, but like more than half of our members stayed on and paying that lower rate, doing the online stuff just to support us. Yeah. And then during that break is when I took over and we refurbed down here and stuff. Yeah. When we reopened from COVID, because whoever was PM, Anastasia, whatever, moved it forward by a week. So we just had bare plaster on the walls and members couldn't give a shit. They're like, we're so desperate to train. And we just want I'm like, nobody touch the walls. Everyone stay inside this little barrier. And they couldn't care. There was bare concrete because we hadn't done the floors yet. Mm-hmm. They didn't care because they're like, we just want to support you and we just want to train. And I think that's a big thing about the network and stuff as well.
Yes.
Was there anything, while we're on COVID, was there anything that you did or implemented besides the app, because that was always going to come anyway, that you've kept, or did it change the way you thought about fitness or maybe your business model? Because you're like, this could happen again, or I actually really like the way we did this, let's implement that. Was there anything from that?
Well, there was actually a really big business model change we made during COVID. So we were originally a fixed fee as a franchise group.
Yeah, true. I remember that.
Yeah. And so with the app, owning our technology and having the complete kind of pathway of funds flowing from member into our technology stack and then out to our business owners, I didn't know how we were going to go coming through COVID, coming out of it. So I utilized that time and I genuinely thought this then, how could we genuinely be in business together? So we changed it to a percentage of revenue. So we modeled that out. So instead of going, we'll charge you full fee or half fee, whatever it is, we shifted the whole model to percentage of revenue. And that was a really big move in our business. And everyone got on board. We actually gave everyone the option. So you can pay the fee, you can move to percentage. I think there was 3 or 4 people that stayed on the fee. They wanted to back themselves because obviously it's a scale now, right? All of a sudden you're making more members. There was a certain trigger where it was like, we'll be paying HQ more. But it's like, but then we can also invest more back into it. And that's our business. It was a big shift. And it was interesting, right? Going to the network at that time to say, hey guys, you're going to have to re-sign on to this. It's your option. You can choose. And I think everyone went through these flows of, is this the right decision or the wrong decision? Is there a hidden agenda? But it was genuinely I want to change the business model. I want to go percentage of revenue. Yeah, that's I want to drive a bigger number.
I was one of the first to sign the new agreement because that's when I took over and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So big shift. And look, there's still today pros and cons to it, right? We've got some extremely high performers in the network doing huge revenue, and they're filtering more cash back into HQ. And then vice versa, right? People that aren't doing the member numbers that we really need and they need, which we've got to give additional support to and additional resources to. But I think overall the model is in a better position for it because we can really forecast on, rather than just location to location, which a lot of the other bigger brands are, that's a safe bet as a franchisor. We actually have to forecast on membership revenue. we are in
Fluctuates daily.
if like when we talk about, let's talk about Christmas time, right?
Yeah.
Our favorite time of the year, right? Your pause percentage changes, right? About 25% we forecast.
Yeah.
Right. That's on the high side.
Mine's, yeah.
Right. And so imagine at a franchisor level with the volume of revenue we're doing, a 25% hit on your revenue. Like, so again, pros and cons to all of it that we've got to forecast in, but then we're really incentivized to make sure what strategies have we got around December, not just to leave the business owners to be like, oh, well, good luck guys, because you're going to pay me the same in December anyway, is to be like, oh no, the name of the game for us is how do we limit that window? So yes, we're going to forecast 20%. We only want it for 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, because 3 weeks, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To you as a business owner and to us as well, running the business. So
yeah. Yeah, well, I have the the Christmas one.
Yep.
And then we get hammered in winter as well.
Right,
Because everyone you said goes to Europe.
Like, what about me, guys?
Take
I want to go. Yeah, absolutely, right. And we've got to build a forecast and a model around all of that. But we also need to keep looking at innovation in this space. And group fitness isn't what it was 4 years ago. Queensland, it's so saturated. We've got to make sure we're constantly looking at what strategies are we bringing in the years to come to make sure as a brand we can stay relevant. For us, I think our training methodology hasn't changed, will never change, but how we stay relevant to our consumer, and that's either through brand messaging, that's through our membership options we offer, that's through additional products. So I'm excited for 2025 and a few things we're working on.
Yeah, cool. Besides, kind of on that note, besides obviously EBITDA and revenue, are there other metrics that HQ uses to determine like what a successful, quote unquote, successful franchise is or location is?
Look, it's got to come back down to profitability. Absolutely. But the other big one is where's your return on investment? So, we need to make sure that when we're going through the entire end-to-end process, building selection, is within the standards that we need and you need as a business owner. Where's your build cost at? What incentives can we give, right? You've just met Janae, our new leasing manager, and she's savage on this stuff. But we need to make sure you're looking at your overall business, and your overall business should be, what's your upfront investment? Then what's your profitability year on year? How quickly can you get that investment back? And then what could a resale value look like? And that comes from great systems and great reoccurring revenue. But you've got to be profitable at the end of the day. So, we look at that overall in our network for sure. And we know there's fluctuations. We know there's areas of opportunity in our business. But then at a more global lens and level, we really look at what volume do we have coming through your door? What average yields are you charging? What's your length of stays? Like, what's the referral programming look like? What's cost per lead or cost per acquisition of member? What trial programs have we got on? Like, there's a lot of data that we're constantly looking at to try to create action from. Yeah,
cool. Now that you're a bit bigger, because obviously when you were, 5 locations, all your decision-making processes were probably just you decide, and that's what we're doing. Now that you're bigger, how does HQ make decisions? Is it looking at all that? I guess it depends on the subject matter is, but generally speaking, is it like, okay, we want to do this, let's look at all the data, and does the data back our decision? Or like, is there a board, or like, is it feedback from location owners? How does decision-making work at that bigger level now?
Well, we'll go top down for a second. We do have a board. So we've got investment from Lift Brands. So Chris, who is the APAC CEO of Lift Brands, so Snap Fitness and part owners of 9 Round. He sits on the board. It's myself and then Stu Cook, my chairman, and then Russ, my CFO, and Ellie, our COO. So we meet monthly. We obviously create our annual plans. It's all around our budget, and we've got a strategic business plan that goes with that. So we've got key focus and metrics we need to achieve, and key initiatives that we want to do for that year. And whether that's international expansion, or a big focus for us at the moment is unit level economics and how we're driving member number up and increasing revenue for our studios in Australia. So we put together those key initiatives that then gets delivered to the team. And then the team are building out their departmental plans. The team report on those plans every month. But the team also needs to collaborate with our business owners. So then when we go down to business owner level, we've then got FAC, so our Franchise Advisory Council. So there's one person from each region on that. So any new initiatives, any conversations, any topic of conversation from the network comes through our Franchise Advisory Council back into our FAC in office to discuss those topics of conversation, and whether that's challenges or new initiatives. And then that's distributed back out to the network. And then outside of that, I mentioned before, we've just made a few more changes to get our business owners involved more, and that's what we're now calling an annual group scoop. So every year we do a complete franchise third-party survey to the network, and it gives us some really good anonymous feedback, and it rates us against other franchise groups. And since that, we've added what we're calling now our annual group scoop, which is insight and input from the network around key areas of focus for next calendar year. And then that starts to set that up. So yeah, there's a pretty broad range now. It's not just kind of Pete walking into the office and being like, oh, 3 weeks sounds good.
Yeah.
Push it out. It's very strategic and it's challenged, which is the most important thing. And again, rewind 12 months ago, I don't think we were great at this. I think there's been some real key players that have really elevated in office, in HQ, but then also the addition of a global COO that can come in with a new lens, challenge us internally, and then have that kind of, fresh set of eyes with business owners to go, why aren't we doing this anymore? Or have we thought about these areas of opportunity? So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, a little structure around me these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the global stuff, was it always your plan to dominate the world? Or did you kind of get to a certain size, you go, hang on a minute, we could expand here? And then the second part of that is, how did you know how to do it? Again, because opening a new state is challenging in itself, let alone a new country, because you've got to build brand awareness and all that sort of stuff. Like USA doesn't have a clue who we are. So you got to start again almost.
You do, yeah. Yep.
Was that one of the reasons partnering with Lift Brands? Because they have their finger in all the pies in the global market and they were kind of helping to get that footprint, blueprint or whatever into it?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways you can grow franchises as the franchisor. We obviously always wanted to focus on Australia. I'll be honest, when I started the franchise in the first place, I didn't even intend to move out of Queensland. It was I never modeled out, and this is silly, but I actually never modeled it out. We looked at, okay, what did it look like to get to 100? And that was the 5-year plan or something. It was on a whiteboard and looked pretty. But as we started to grow and we looked at the genuine impact we were making from a product lens, the results we get our members, life-changing results. And then, as a business owner, the money it can make a business owner, and then how can look at scale and then the attraction from other states. That was really organic. Now, naturally, the franchisor needs to be funded by upfront franchise sales as well. And I think we probably forget that in the franchise space. Everyone sees growth. And it's yeah, because if you look at the percentage of royalty coming in, that's not enough to fund out a team. That's not enough to fund marketing, tech, all these things, right? You need accessory revenue, and that comes from franchise sales. We've been really fortunate that we focused on Australia and we were able to really self-fund that out. We then partnered with Lift Brands. They bought in and took 30%. So they bought an original shareholder out, and then they funded a little bit in at that stage. And that was kind of coming out of COVID. But then once they really saw the proof of the model, and then we started to actually plan out what size do we want to get to in Australia. And we modeled out around 220 or so locations, right? Because we didn't want to be stupidly dense.
Cap it at 220?
Yeah, well, we think about 220 is the nice size, right? And we're about 130 or so here at the moment, 135. We wanted to a few key markets. We actually really like the idea of regional communities. So we've modeled that out, and we grew we grew somewhat dense in Queensland and quite quickly. We got to learn from that. We got to learn from mistakes other franchisors had made in this space, and you've seen the demise of those brands now. And so we modeled that out, and we looked at, okay, over the next 5 years, we can do that quite comfortably. We need to resource up. This is what the revenue looks like. We don't need to raise any more money for that, and that's important, especially as the founder and major shareholder. So where else, right? And we started to look at the American market. Lift Brands were really excited for us to expand, but they also wanted us to be disciplined. They didn't want us to go and start selling masters, which is what a lot of groups do this. Oh, we've mastered this, and because it's cash in, right? you can take a large check and it's someone else's problem almost.
Yeah.
So we decided to raise a little bit more money through them. So they reinvested in us to go and fund the US. And the first 2 years, the only focus was to get the first 5. So we've done that now. One of them being corporately funded. So we own Santa Monica. We know that this is the next 3 to 5 years around building the brand before it can see scale. We don't want to just go and sell 100 there. We want to showcase that it can be proven because the market's slightly different. So that's why my life got a bit crazy last year. I'd committed to the fact that we know we need to grow and support Australia, but at the same time, we need to overlap the startup phase again of the US. Because once Australia gets to that 220, we want to be really happy with that. We don't want to be a brand that all of a sudden is like, oh, more territories. It's like, no, like we're so sound and happy here. Yourself. We need that other market to grow. And that's what we've done. And, we're looking at other regions, absolutely, with the right partners to master. But for us, we want to own Australia and the US and grow it in the right ways. And I think externally at times, everyone looks at my socials and is like, oh, yeah, like off to LA again, living the life, doing all these things. Oh, he's only caring about the US. And it was like, well, no, like, I'm busting my ass to like travel back and forth for a year. Like last year was tough. You can see my gray hair, right? Like my beard at the moment.
Don't blame the travel on that.
But it's just that I'm so ingrained in the Australian market and the team and the moving parts. But then you're on the other side of the world trying to do startup phase again. No resources, no cash.
Going back to 2017.
There's no brand awareness, right? Like I'm helping with Fit Out. Like, Pete, our athletic director, is literally driving equipment around, pulling walls down. Like, at times we're doing the painting, the flooring. Like, it's back to startup phase. So you've got a company over here that's like really well structured and highly profitable and doing these things and making moves. And then you're like, oh, I'm back in the trenches. Like, Beck and I were doing the member sales for pre-launch with the whole team leading into it. Because we're like, we need another 50 members. Like, rent in LA is expensive.
Yeah, I bet.
So like scale is important, growth is important, but there's strategy behind it. And I think it's super important to make sure that I'm really dedicated to that strategy, and that's why I just go all in on things. And a lot of the time I put myself last in all of it. Yeah. But I also so grateful that I get to live the crazy journey. Yeah.
Just for clarity, Masters is like, I'll just make this up.
Yeah.
You sell to a company in the US, they give you $1 million, but they'll then resell all the franchises in the US.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And would the negative to that be you kind of lose control a bit?
Look, the positives on a master is when you're looking at a different country that you don't have touch points on and you don't know the culture, and the opportunity for scale might be like up to say 50 units, so 50 franchises. To set up a corporate there is really expensive and high risk versus selling a master. So typically they'll pay you for your rights. So they're buying all of your IP. Yeah. So they'll pay you a lump sum up front, and then you'll have a development plan with them that they've got to achieve those targets. So, we're working through this at the moment in a couple of countries. I won't name them. But essentially we put development plans and targets in place, but they have to prove out that their first 1 or 3, depending on their region, is really successful, and they need to own that as a corporate.
Yeah. Okay.
Then from there, they can on-sell and support based off that first success. And then they just drive a percentage of royalty back to us. Yeah. But they run the country.
And they still have to stick to all the brand guidelines.
Stick to the brand guidelines. They run their own campaigns, their own marketing funds, all those kind of things. But they've got to use our tech. They've got to, same workout. Those pieces. Yeah. Yeah. What country do you want to buy, Zane?
I don't know. I'll get back to you. Maybe Ibiza. What was I going to say? Oh, before you decided to go global, was there any KPIs or metrics that you wanted to meet and be like, no, we need to make sure this works before we even think about overseas?
It was 100. So we opened our 100th in New Zealand at the start of last year. It's pretty crazy. But that was the magic number. And that was actually set by Lift Brands. So when they invested, they set us these key milestones and proof points of making sure that at a head office level, we're profitable, we can reinvest, we can support Australia, and that, we can inject some cash, which they supported on, to be able to go to the US and be dedicated for that. But 100 was the proof point. And then it was, okay, now you can start talking about it. Obviously, as soon as we started to make those plans, you're thinking about it. I did a lot of trips for R&D. I was looking at scoping what regions do we open in? What do we want to be known for? Who do I want to recruit? But it wasn't until we hit that kind of benchmark, it was like, cool, go have a crack at it.
Yeah. Were there any major roadblocks for the global stuff?
Oh, so many. Like setting up entities in a foreign country. The US is insane.
Yeah. Okay.
Trademarking. Someone owned Fitstop trademark. So it took me 12 months to negotiate with them and sort out a commercial deal that still hurts me every year to buy the trademark, actually to license it. We're kind of co-using it, although it's not even the same business. And that's happened in multiple countries. We've had to do that.
Yeah.
Setting up a franchise in the US, it took us 18 months to set that up. Like we actually couldn't sell in the US until I think it was August last year. So we actually opened the first corporate, and we had forecasted that we would be selling through that process of opening and discovering. We couldn't drive any additional revenue in. The list goes on and on. Yeah. The US was tough. Local area, town planning complexities. If anyone follows me on socials, you would have seen Hermosa Beach was an absolute nightmare for me. So grateful for the owners that just hung on there with me. Again, stop at nothing, like all the way to the end. We were held in council for additional 6 months after the open day we set, with 150 members waiting to get in there and train. So last year was tough, but it's just a learning process. And now I know all of it. I know to ask the right questions.
Do you think it would, I don't want to use the word impossible, but like pretty damn tough to do it without the Lift brands and their sort of international experience? Or do you think you would have sort of fumbled your way through it on your own?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. One is like that having a global partner like that definitely helps with like entity setup and recognition of funds, and that you're able to shortcut. You're able to shortcut a few things, right? Because as soon as someone looks at you, and they would have looked at us as an Australian brand with 100 units and a bit of cash, versus, you've got this, a 30% partner that is based out of the US, like that definitely helped. Like Lift brands are quite supportive from our Australian market as well. We lean on them quite a bit for like market research and insights. We cross-pollinate a little bit with internal IP, but it's just been helpful to have what I'd say is like a big brother, I guess. Lean on when you need to, kicks me in the butt when I need it. All
right, moving forward to, I guess, now. Current climate, not so amazing, which is probably your next hurdle. Add it to the pile of hurdles.
Sure.
What's, I guess, maybe how has the current economy affected Fitstop as a brand from a HQ level? And then maybe, do you think it's changing the fitness industry a little bit?
Yeah, look, I think, and again, it probably just goes back to my personal focus. Like we saw this starting kind of this time last year. And it was like I'm very deep in the US setup at that stage, just launched Santa Monica, a number of things kind of in the pipeline and rolling out. And the larger plans were to make sure I was really close to learn all of that. But then there was a big transition into, okay, we need to make sure Australia is really looked after. What do we need to do to recruit the right people into HQ? What do we start to really look at? And my first big move there was hiring Russell, our CFO, very data-driven, very disciplined, and that's what the business needed. We were quite fortunate to go through a really nice honeymoon period after COVID, and that's what it felt like. We rode this wave of, fitness is booming, boutique space is booming, people are spending cash, they're valuing connection. Like it couldn't have really gone any better for us.
Everyone was like, what pandemic?
And I think the byproduct of the pandemic, the biggest one was like people wanted to work out together, right? And we do that really well. Like we're training groups of 3, we get vulnerable, we build connection, we party together. Like it's a lifestyle. Like I think the brand really aligned with what the world needed. And so the phase we're now going through, I'm really grateful for, again, Russ and Ellie, who have stepped into the business to be able to recognize this because they've been through it through their past, right? It's not their first rodeo. They've been through challenging times. And the big handbrake was, okay, financial discipline. Let's get deep in what really works and what really matters. And let's really focus on the level of support and strategy we can bring to a business owner. And unfortunately, that just doesn't switch overnight. It needed to be like, okay, steady the ship for the first 6 months. Let's really look at what this is going to look like. where we need to resource up. And that's why first CFO, Russ, discipline, forecast, steady the ship, how are we going to weather a bit of the storm potentially? Then COO, right? Network health. So like financial discipline, CFO, network health. Right? So all of a sudden it's like, cool, 2 key people. One, it relieves the pressure from me making the decision, which no one wants any of, right? But it was also be patient to onboard them the right way, because the last thing you want is like bring senior leadership in that they go and do it their way. And I've definitely learned from mistakes in the past doing that. So now we're at that stage of, okay, what does 2025 look like? And yes, we are deep in the storm at the moment. And the media just have a field day on this stuff, right? Like everyone's talking about like, businesses that are going to close, or financial hardship and cost of living and interest rates. Like we all feel it, right? Like it's 100% known for sure. But where's the value proposition? And I think that's the area of opportunity in the boutique space. We need to make sure that we're positioned in the right way, that every single member spending $50 or $60 a week with us is getting that value directly back. Because the second they don't is the second they leave. So customer service for us at the moment is so vital. So that's why we're really increasing our operations team, but we're really focusing on even changing the language for them. It's all about business performance. So the one area we're focusing on right now is sales training. So membership sales training, the onboarding, what toolkits are we building out? What advisors are we getting on board? And how can we upskill and educate our network? And again, it doesn't happen overnight, but this is what's going to be coming out. And we spoke about this at Summit a few months ago. The second layer for us is brand. What are we going to reinvest in? How do we need to divert some funds? We've heavily invested in technology. Okay, do we need to keep doing that to grow? Are we happy there? Or do we need to make some shifts in our technology and the way we're collecting those fees to put them into brand? Because we need to build brand trust. Because right now, everyone's looking at whether it's fitness or another business. Do I trust that business to put my money in every week? How can we be known as a trusted brand, similar to what we did through COVID? Oh, they're the trusted brand, I want to go to them. And when the boutique space is hurting, and there's a number of brands that, whether they're not doing the right thing or they're not coming up with the right strategies, there will be some hardship. Fitstop needs to be the go-to and the legacy leaving. So brand's super important. The last area for us, and again, this is crazy, but as we've grown and scaled, I don't think we've been as close as we needed to the end product. So we brought on Andrew Papp, athletic director for Australia, about 6 months ago now. Again, that's one that you've got to like onboard and induct people slowly. He kind of came in, bit of a bull in the china shop, shook things around a little bit. I had to like settle it down. No, mate, like, hey, we've got a fitness team. We need to make sure we're embedded with them. But what we're working on with him at the moment is a trainer accreditation to reaccreditate all of our trainers and coaches. Right? So we know that's the end product and that's the value that's driving for the member. Right? So it's like leadership team, reinforce that. Focus on an ops team driving sales, reinvest or redirect funds into brand, build trust, and then trainer accreditation, really uplift the value we're bringing to our member firsthand. And so we've been looking at this from the last kind of 6 months to then make sure we're setting up 2025, our calendar year, to have all of these initiatives really dialed in. And unfortunately, with our size, if we were maybe 5 or 10 locations, you can pivot this stuff fast. And we did that in COVID. Yeah. But it's developing these initiatives now to get buy-in to 150 locations, 850 coaches, to be able to really make that impact. So yeah, for us, and I'd say for like advice to any business out there, it's like, what are the things that you can reinvest in to really make an impact in your business that's going to drive a positive outcome versus the things you can't control? And for us, sales, brand, and end product member experience, that's what we're doubling down on right now.
Yeah. Do you think, because all those things that you're doing now or implementing and stuff like that, they're probably more so for existing locations.
Yep.
They do obviously help the brand in the long run.
Yep.
But at the moment, do you think, or have you been trying to find that delicate balance of trying to grow the brand, like obviously selling locations, but then trying to keep current locations busy?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Are you struggling to trying to find the balance for that at the moment, or like has one priority? Is it more about saving locations and you're just stalling growth for a while, or like how does that work from a HQ level?
Look, it goes hand in hand, right? Like at the moment, if you're a consumer sitting there wondering if you should spend $50 on a functional fitness boutique membership, or maybe go to Snap Fitness and spend 18, right? And then, look at your app and do a training program that you'll never stick to.
Yeah, or never go to the gym.
Yeah, or never go to the gym, right? It's the same. Where am I going to put my money right now? So we've got to make sure we support our current network to make sure that unit level economics start to increase, right? Because we know if we've got business owners making money, right, and that's how we make money. And again, we're really fortunate to be this size because our reoccurring revenue is quite healthy in Australia. Right? If we were under 50 or even under 100, honestly, I think we would be in a very different position because you need that $50,000 franchise fee up front, right, to pay bills. So I'm really grateful we're in this position. So big focus right now is network health. Sales are still coming through, but it's definitely a lot slower than it was 2 years ago. And understandably, right? Yeah. Money's more expensive. And people are sitting there looking at, okay, is this a good investment for me to take? Right? We are absolutely focused on bringing the right people through, but even for our process now, it's vetting those people really thorough, looking at the territory and making sure that they're really understanding that this is where you're going to start your business, how you're going to grow it, what our expectations are of you, and making sure they're really sound.
Yeah.
What we've noticed through this period is it's actually people that are more interested in multi-unit because they want to see scale in something. And although you could look at our space and see it's challenged, it's also something you can control with your funds. So if you've got business acumen and you love fitness, you're still going to plug into this space and go, I'm going to plug into my financial modeler. I know I'm going to get pretty savvy on a rent deal at the moment because there's some businesses that have been hurting and are exiting leases. I'm going to plug these numbers in. I'm going to look at my overall yield and where I think I can grow my membership. And I'm going to look at key demographics and areas that I want to go into. So we're seeing a lot more sophistication come into this space. I think we rode this wave of like so many leads on franchising, and we say no to so many people, to now that slowed down, but the people coming through our process, we're like, yes, you need to open. Like you're going to crush it. And they're the ones that are coming to inductions and be like, yeah, want to do this. Hey guys, have you thought about that? Like, oh, I've come from this other franchise in food and I want to plug this thinking in. So yeah, it's really exciting, but there's definitely a balance. Like we said before, Australia for us is like 220-ish, right? So our growth is naturally slowing here, which is good because we can be really selective. And the funds, the reoccurring funds we currently have is all about reinvesting in the current business to get more members in each of these locations, which means that then we make more money.
Yeah. And it kind of does, you're right, feed hand in hand. Like if even if you focused solely on improving location health, well, then you're going to be the franchise that has 150 healthy locations.
Correct.
Well, of course they're going to invest in you. Like if you're shopping between you and all the competitors and they've got, going out of business and stuff like that, you've got healthy locations, all the sales will kind of take care of itself.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Is there any advice that you would say potentially to maybe franchisors or more particularly, I guess, the small business owners on like building resilience and I guess adaptability in general, but also I guess where we're at now?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I've adapted or adopted a couple of new methodologies. I ice bath or plunge each morning. I haven't this week actually.
Oh, no.
I know, I dropped the ball. But for me, it's really about how you're setting your day up and how you're practicing those disciplines. And also through these phases, where are you learning from? So I've been seeking mentorship or trying to find a new mentor or a new group to seek personal growth for a while now. I've actually just signed up to one. And that starts in September. So I'm excited about that. So I'm always looking at these couple of buckets. It's like, what am I doing for myself personally to make sure I'm practicing discipline and I'm in the right headspace? So for me, it's, do I plunge every morning? I make sure I've got my own morning routine, and then I either run or go to Fitstop, like non-negotiables. Because we know as soon as we break those habits and we're not kind of being disciplined to ourselves, every other element of my life anyway, it goes to shit. So morning routine for me is vital. And as soon as I'm a bit run down, which I have been, it's like that slips. It's like, oh no, I'm feeling a bit better. I got to get back into it. The other part is I'm trying to be a bit more conscious and kind to myself and others around me as well, where it's like, you can actually take your foot off the gas for a second, like give yourself some time. Like this year I've actually there's been a few weekends that I've taken a day off and just sat on the couch and watched Netflix, and I would have never done that. But it's like, oh, I've got to recognize I'm getting burnt out. Like, let's be conscious of that, because if I get burnt out, I'm not good for the team. If I'm not good for the team, not good for the brand. Like, it flows on. So that's really important. And then the third one I just mentioned around getting a mentor. And if you're in franchising, say Fitstop, you've got 156 other owners around you. How often are you reaching out to them? Right. And, we share data, right? So it's like, oh, this person's crushing, or this person's not. I'm going to call both of them. Hey, like, how you going? What are you doing really well? The other one, hey, how you going? Can I help you with anything? Like, I think creating that community around you, I think in times of challenge, we can get so isolated, but if we lean into and recognize the people we've got around us that we can either help support or gain support from, then you're in a better position. So,
yeah. What do you look for in a mentor? Like, say this phase that you're in now, what are you looking to learn? Is it more self-development? Is it learning how to go from a 150 location franchise to a 300 location franchise? Like, where are you at with your mentor space?
I've taken 6 months to find the right group. And I was looking at individuals. There's a lot of mentors out there, a lot of programs you can sign up to. And again, I think it's like each different phase or season you're going through. For me, my next season is adding a layer of sophistication to myself. I didn't go to university. I've been very self-taught, and I've gotten to where I have today because I'm happy to take calculated risks, but I need more structure. And I'm lucky I've got people that have got great structure around me, but I need to invest that time. So I decided to go with the group I'm going with. It's a very private group, but the leader in the group is very well educated, very structured, very system focused, and will not be lenient. And that's what I need right now is this is the structure to follow. You need to show up and do this. And the group I'm also going and being a part of, they're quite sophisticated business owners that have been through challenging times and have grown big business. They're all CEOs. They've all got a certain amount of revenue and team member count and all those things. And I'm excited to learn. I think I'll be the bottom of the pyramid for this group. So I'm pumped that there's so many people I can learn from.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good being at the bottom because then you get hungry again. Yeah. You go, oh, old mate's got X, Y, Z. I want that. And then you.
Well, I think I don't know. I've probably also never valued the I want those things. Like, I'm really lucky to have experienced a lot in the world, do nice holidays and back at the house and all those things, right? But for me, what I'm really looking for from these people is their life experience, where it's what I want is to learn, how do I engage better with the team? How do I build a better structure? I know because of my relaxed nature, I can let people down because I'll promise the world and I'll back their ideas, but I won't give them the depth or substance they truly need to thrive. So I want to be a better person and a better leader so I can actually set structure and discipline and accountability myself. Yeah. And then I know that's when the business will thrive again and go through that next phase of intense growth.
Is that what you mean? Is that what you mean by sophisticated? Or
it's developing the depth now. I can talk all day about Fitstop, but I need to learn how to apply that broader. I need to learn how to manage globally. I need to learn how to bring a team in and make sure that I can get them to thrive in their environment. I think that's that phase we went through where I had so many people around me that were so bought into the vision and the passion and all the things that it was they could almost just read my mind. And then we would joke about it, oh, Pete's thinking this, we'll go and do this and we'll change that. But it's that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That only works for a certain period. So I want to be able to have a seat at the table. I think I'm also, and this is probably my own limiting belief, I see myself as being quite young for the position I'm in. And when I'm at the table with other global CEOs and, fitness franchise or even any franchise CEO, got to go and sit with Steve Marks at GYG.
Yeah.
Right. Super intelligent. I think I feel in that position, I know I'm not that young and I've got gray hair and a beard, but I'm sometimes I feel still just the kid at the table. So I want to earn the right to be no, I've built this, I'm here, this is what I'm doing and this is where we can go and this is the next chapter.
Yeah. Nice. That's cool. You sort of touched on it before with the non-negotiables and ice bars and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that also one of your big protocols for helping stress?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's that stop at nothing. How do you keep building yourself to have that level of resilience? And for me, and Pap's been awesome to have part of the team. He's all about this. He's got such an interesting story, and like he just ran some stupid amount of kilometers in the Swiss Alps, and like puts himself through all of these like crazy painful activities. But when I first met him, he was like, "I'm going to send you a dope tub, and I want you just to do it and tell me what you think." And then no pressure at all on it. No like you need to do this protocol. Like it was like just have a crack at it. And I just fell in love with the process, and waking up every morning and I don't go crazy with it. It's like it's set at 8 degrees, so I'm not sitting in there like blowing it up. It's like it's uncomfortable. But just the fact of like alarm goes off at 5, walk downstairs, have a glass of water, get in the tub. That's how I start my day. And so it's like I've sat in an ice bath or an 8-degree tub for 3 minutes. Come at me, like. So that, and then just the discipline around training. But I think Fitstop gives so much of that. Like destroy yourself in a Fitstop session. Like, if I'm really challenging myself and I can't get out of my head, I jump on my road cycle. I haven't done this for a while. I must be doing okay. Jump on my road cycle and I go destroy myself up Mount Cootha. If you see me doing regular Mount Cootha,
if I see a Strava on a bike,
if I'm doing Mount Cootha sprints,
I need to message you. Yeah, are you okay?
I'm probably not having the best time. But you're searching for that like endorphin rush and that clarity, and like I love the process of pain. Like a few protocols at the moment.
Yeah, nice. Obviously, technology is getting more and more like prevalent. What do you vision, I guess, maybe tech and fitness in the next 5 to 10 years? And then maybe like how Fitstop works into that?
Yep.
Some visions for that, if you can share.
Yeah, look, we're really reviewing our technology stack at the moment. We built complete custom, and that was amazing through COVID. I'll be honest, I don't know where the full custom world goes in the future. I think AI and I think tech innovation in general has just become its own new world. Like I think we're going through this next transitional phase of like tech is blowing up, and the ones with the deepest pockets and the ability to build tech in the modern age. Like I think we were the modern age tech builder of facility management system, billing and booking 5 years ago.
Yeah, 2020, yeah.
And I think we've already been outgrown, right? So where do we want to play? Who do we want to partner with? How do we want to be seen in this space? So I think there's elements that we will partner with certain providers to take over what we've done and doing versus what we're going to keep investing in. And for me, it's doubling down on the member experience and data collection in a physical location to support a trainer to help them get the member better results. I don't think for the next 3 years anyway, Fitstop's the technology company that has AI and mirrors, screens, and like we're a people-driven business, but we can use some of this data to focus on accountability check-ins. We can use some of this data to make sure that we can be more predictable in our technology stack, to make sure you're doing your 3 sessions a week. Like Fitstop's simple, right? 12-week training program, come and do 3 sessions a week with us, plug in a run or a yoga session, eat well and you're going to feel incredible. Very trainer and coach led. But yeah, I think for us, it's how do we lean into technology for accountability to the member and education for our trainer, and how do we increase those touch points for our trainer to make a bigger impact on our member. But yeah, the technology space is interesting, and everyone's trying to play in it at the moment and develop all these things that typically aren't working.
Yeah, well, you're right. We're at that phase where you could go and spend, a very large amount of money, but I feel like in 2 years' time, it's going to be outdated.
Yep.
Like it's almost like, do you just ride it out for a year or two, let other franchises and companies be the test bunny, waste their money, and then learn from their mistakes and stuff like that? Do you look at, obviously it's good to kind of look at what competitors are doing just to keep your finger on the pulse, but how much of what competitors are doing maybe does or doesn't influence decisions? Can you touch on that a little bit?
It does definitely. I'm following Nike Studios at the moment really closely. Right, it's I think they've got 8 locations, 8 studios open now in the US. They partnered with FitLab, I think it was. I know, look into that. Maybe that's not true.
Fact check it.
They partnered with an existing group fitness modality, branded it Nike Studios. They've got run clubs, they've got strength training, they've got a boot camp style one. And they're playing in this space to focus on brand. They're not doing tech in any way. They're focusing on brand. So I'm looking at them for brand, nothing about fitness. They're definitely not us. But then from a technology point of view, what we're looking at the moment is what's driving increased revenue. And there's a few modalities, we'll say, out there, and they're not necessarily in the functional space, that are selling memberships in a different way. They're offering different packages. They're offering different services that are expanding your membership. And I think when we're all fishing from the same pond, we've got to look at what's our market share and who's spending what where, and how do we want to get our consumer to spend it with Fitstop. I still play a lot in that space from a product lens, and an evolution lens, and that's where I'm still making some key decisions around where we invest and where I think we can get better return on investment for our business owners on. So, yeah, looking at the space quite closely, but I'm probably less excited about in huge investments in tech, and I'm more excited about big investments in brand and investments in tech that get a return.
Yeah, because it's this weird sort of fitness, not double-edged sword, but tech is important, but also you don't need it to run a good gym, but you do. No, it's like that weird, because all we really use is internet.
Yes.
And that's it, because the internet plays the music, and then you got one screen that has the cloud that has the program on it, and then
done.
Yeah. So if someone is looking, let's just say entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah.
Sort of a two-part question. Do you have any maybe one or two key advice or points to give someone who is looking to get into their own franchise or their own business? And then it sort of leads into the same one. What leadership qualities do you think make a good CEO or entrepreneur, I guess?
So anyone looking to get into business, you've got to be stupidly passionate about it, because all the other things will go wrong and you're just left with your passion. As much as my Instagram highlight reel shows that I'm having the time of my life, every day you're challenged. You've got to wake up every day and know what you're fighting for, and you've got to have a genuine burning desire to fight through it. So first and foremost, if it's just an idea, just don't do it. But if it's I want to solve a problem and I believe so much in this and I'm just going after it, have a crack at it. And the second one, which I didn't do at the start, was financially model it out. Is it ever going to make money? Don't just be the guy that's all passionate and bounces between 10 things you're passionate about. Is it going to make money? Is it scalable? And then what makes a good CEO? Look, I think I'm more founder than CEO. And so I think for me, it's so focused on the product, the business model, and the overall experience that I love, and I lead through that. So I'm constantly in the weeds around what can we be better at, right? And that's probably also a negative for me. I think a more kind of corporate-led or non-founder CEO is going to be very focused on what elements of the business or what levers do they have to control the profit margin and the overall growth and the strategy behind the growth that they can execute on, and building the team around them. So that's what I'm working towards, but I don't think I'll ever get out of the weeds and care about Zane's experience in Newstead wasn't great, it was epic, and I want to learn from it. I'm still obsessed with that. I still love, jumped in on the weekend, took a session and tried to help a business owner through it, a challenging time, and I still thrive on that stuff.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're into our final three moments. Same questions for all three, for all the guests.
Nice.
So besides Beck, obviously, what's been the highlight of maybe your career or life so far? One key moment that really stood out to you?
Few key moments. The first one was Brisbane Power Players 2018 or 19 or something. The first time I kind of looked around the stadium, there's all these people, massive event, and I was like, oh, shit, Fitstop's a thing. That was really cool. Being able to grow the business and launch into the US. So first open in the US, we actually opened a pop-up to test it, because I was like, test the waters a little bit. But running the first session there and introducing it, and then watching everyone do exactly the same thing as they do at every other open in Australia, where it's come in, be a bit awkward, not really talk, to then go through the session, become best friends, sweat on each other, high five, stay around and just chat. seeing communities come to life and seeing that in LA was really, really cool. And then outside of that, just like being a part of some insane success stories for our owners, and seeing them go from strength to strength and really growing up as individuals, or buying a house or getting married, or watching team members go from trainers in Fitstops to like managers to owners to HQ team members to exiting HQ and going into the next phase of their life and career. Like that stuff's really cool, I think.
Nice. That's good. What's one piece of advice that's been given to you in life that's like really stood out to you?
I've already said it, but it is that reason, season, or a lifetime.
Yeah. When you said that, I was like, oh, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, that's a big one, because it's also something that means you don't take things personally. And I think that's important. Franchising's tough, right? Like, and I'm founder CEO, like everything stops at me. And so on a daily, when that's how you feel, and it's an important feeling for me because it means I take everything serious. But knowing that it's not personal, that it's professional, that it's things we need to work through, and I want to value time with people. So whether they're with me for a reason, season, or a lifetime, it's all part of the story.
Yeah, nice. The last one's normally like what's in the future plans for you and stuff, but we've sort of already touched on that. So I'll do a bonus one because I know you're a man of consuming content. Yep. What's the most or best book or podcast or something you've listened to most recently that you got great value out of?
We just read a book as a team. So shout out to Ellie. She came in and looked at the organization. And again, discipline is a thing at the moment. And the book is called Who Will Do What by When. Very good book, very short, easy read, or you can get it on audiobook. Audible, is that it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Who Will Do What by When. Really good and really beneficial if you have a team to get the team to read it together. It talks a lot about perspective, about integrity, and about what it means to really win together. And I think that's important for the phase we're going through. So yeah, who will do what by when?
I'll have to suss it out.
You will.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story, Pete. It's been inspiring as always.
Thank you for having me, Zane. It was fun to come back.
Yeah, it was good. Wish you all the best, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, mate.